G'day ZKD here and welcome to my in-depth build guide for the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger. This build uses two of the new Esh unique Hand of Wisdom and Action to obtain huge amounts of lightning damage using the Spectral Throw skill, though you could also play as Blade Flurry if you prefer. Hand of Wisdom and Action, or HOWA for short, provides 1 to 6 lightning damage per 10 intelligence your character has. However, when we dual wield these, it becomes 2 to 12 lightning damage per 10 intelligence to our attacks. The claws are fairly slow with no local attack speed modifier, but they do grant some global attack speed from our dexterity as well. To aid in our intelligence stacking, each claw also gives up to 12% increased intelligence scaling. The whole premise of this build is built around this, and it's quite simple. Stack as much intelligence as possible, and then scale the massive amount of flat lightning damage the HOWA claws give us. One of the inherent benefits of the intelligence stat is that it also scales your energy shield, 2% per 10 intelligence. So naturally this is going to be a Chaos Inoculation energy shield build. I have 960 intelligence on my character at the moment and I'm getting 192% increased energy shield before any actual energy shield nodes on the passive tree. The result of this is that we can run incredibly lean on energy shield nodes and are still easily able to get 9,000 to 10,000 energy shield. Check out my tree, we only have a couple of energy shield clusters, completely bypassing the regular witch nodes and scion wheels that most ES builds usually get. Instead, we get to spend those passives getting damage scaling and intelligence, which grants us even more damage. It's pretty easy to see how the insane efficiency of this setup could lead to Hand of Wisdom and Action builds being very powerful, and actual in-game performance backs that up. I've done almost all the content in the game on this character and done it well. Guardians are a breeze, even the hardest one, Chimera, I've done deathless pretty easily, and it just rolls over the other ones. High level map clear is very solid, and bossing is a joke with the extremely high single target damage combined with high amounts of Leech, Ghost Reaver, and Vaal Pact. Atziri is burned down instantly, and the HOWA Ranger is a more than capable Shaper farmer. In the background footage of this Shaper run I died once, but as you can see that was more my own stupidity than the build's fault. Deathless Shaper runs will be a piece of cake on any experienced Shaper farmer. And even with no Shaper experience, this is a great choice for a first attempt. In fact, this was the first build that I ever did Shaper on. I've done all the Breach Swords including Chayula successfully, Vinkdar map, all high level red maps, and even a double boss tier 16 Vaal Temple. This is just one of those builds that can do everything in the game and do it well. The combination of CI, Vaal Pact, Vinkdar, and pure lightning damage, high single target and AoE damage, and high mobility are just too good to be true. This build is pretty much all the broken things in the game thrown together. So now that you want to play the Mighty Morphin HOWA Ranger, I'll give you everything you need to do just that. First up, our ascendancy of choice is the Raider. HOWA is not a super fast weapon by itself because of the lack of a local attack speed mod. The newly buffed Raider gives us a huge amount of speed thanks to the ability to easily generate and maintain 8 frenzy charges on bosses and while clearing. It also covers the weaknesses of Chaos Inoculation by giving us immunity to all elemental status elements while phased with Avatar of the Veil. With this build, you can easily always be phased as well. You're phased while at max frenzy charges, after getting kills, and whenever you use a Silver Flask granting you Onslaught. In Breach League, where there is a lot of elemental damage flying around, this is a huge survivability buff as well. Never get frozen or chilled in Tull Breaches ever again. For stun immunity, you have a few options. I personally use Enchanted Boots that give 80% stun avoidance on kill. Combined with Heart of Oak from Ranger, this protects you from 99% of stun issues. The only time this can be an issue is in drawn out boss fights with no adds. If you want more reliable stun immunity or don't have the boot enchants, then you can use the Valerium Ring, or simply spend a few passives to get Unwavering Stance. With Spectral Throw you can get projectile nodes and convert strength nodes to intelligence with Brute Force Solution here on the way to Unwavering Stance, so it's not too bad on your passive tree. Let's take a look at the basic tree for Spectral Throw that includes Unwavering Stance. Keystones we're hitting are Vaal Pact, Ghost Reaver, and Chaos Inoculation at the top of the tree. Unwavering Stance and Point Blank at the bottom. Point Blank is worth it once you get enough damage that even with it you can still destroy trash mobs at range. At this point, Point Blank is a big single target damage boost for rares and bosses, and it's an overall buff. I recommend waiting until level 85-ish before getting it. This tree looks extremely travel heavy and stretched out. On a regular build that'd be a pretty bad thing, but remember in this build intelligence is both damage and energy shield. To aid in getting as much intelligence as possible, you'll be using several fertile mind jewels to convert dexterity to intelligence, as well as a brute force solution down the bottom to convert strength. Although you'd get more damage in most cases with rare jewels, intelligence conversion jewels provide a balance of damage and energy shield. The rule of thumb for whether to use a conversion jewel or just a regular rare is if you get to convert at least 60 intelligence, then it's worth it. Otherwise, just use a rare jewel with at least 3 of the following stats. Leveling this build with this tree is one of the biggest downsides to the build. Before you go CI, it can be pretty rough. You'll want to grab a combination of both life and energy shield nodes and use gear with both life and ES. You can use the lower level versions of Hauer, Hand of Thought and Motion from level 22 all the way until Hauer at level 68. As long as you get some intelligence while leveling, you'll have plenty of damage. Your leveling tree should look a little something like this. Drop your life nodes and respec to CI around level 69 once you have some decent energy shield gear. Bandits are simply passive and normal, attack speed and cruel, and frenzy charge and merciless. And now let's take a look at gearing. Weapons are both Hand of Wisdom and Action, obviously. Try and get ones with as high intelligence rolls as possible, at least 11%. The dexterity doesn't matter very much, but try and get decent weapon elemental damage rolls if you can. As this build cannot use a shield, the energy shield on your helmet and chest are very important. Aim for a helmet with at least 300 ES, and a chest with at least 700. It goes without saying that you should be trying to get intelligence rolls on every piece of gear possible. Try to aim for an average of at least 40 per item. As intelligence is a suffix, and competes with resistances, you'll have to spend up in order to get enough resists. For your boots, it's not necessary to have move speed, so you can try and get high energy shield, high intelligence, and high resists on this slot for a bit cheaper. Raider gives a lot of move speed, and whirling blades will get a lot of use. For your gloves, it's ideal to have a good accuracy roll, at least 250. You'll also want energy shield and intelligence here as well, of course. For your belt, you'll ideally want a crystal belt with energy shield, resists, and weapon elemental damage. The wed roll is pretty important as the high flat damage we have scales well. You'll get several thousand DPS from a single wed roll alone. For your rings, you'll want high resist to get you capped for maps, energy shield rolls, intelligence, and preferably weapon elemental damage. Flat lightning damage scaling, and accuracy rolls are also nice. Your amulet can either be an Astramentus for its high intelligence and dexterity, or a rare amulet with high intelligence, at least 75 total. Energy shield, weapon elemental damage, and flat lightning damage or accuracy. Although Astramentus is pretty good, it's really overpriced. For comparison, this is my amulet that I paid 5 chaos for, and it's almost as good as an Astramentus, maybe even better because I really needed that cold resistance. The best in slot amulet is actually a rare, considering you can get as much intelligence on a rare as on an Astramentus. In addition to other damage or ES mods, a rare can easily win out. Flasks are super important in this build. Vessel of Victor, for obvious reasons, you'll want a lightning penetration one. And that series promise is also really good for the added chaos damage and leech. Go for a max elemental conversion roll. Trust me, you'll want 2 bleed immune flasks as well. Either a granite or a basalt, and then a silver flask. Your final flask can be a quicksilver, but I prefer a second silver flask with an adrenaline roll. The move speed is only a little bit less, and it ensures phasing up time in boss fights. For your utility flask prefixes, you'll want increased duration, additional charges, or reduced charges used. Next up, let's take a look at the skill gem layouts. Your main skill, Spectral Throw, is supported in this order: weapon elemental damage, elemental focus, lightning penetration, greater multiple projectiles, and either added lightning damage or faster attacks for your 6th link. For tougher bosses, to swap to single target, simply swap greater multiple projectiles for slower projectiles. For your first 4 link, you're going to use Vaal Discipline, Vaal Haste, Increased Duration, and Rallying Cry. Use your Vaal Haste liberally while clearing and whenever you need a DPS boost, and use your Vaal Discipline if you're taking a lot of damage or going into a boss fight. The next 4 link is Discipline, Wrath, a Lightning Golem, and Enlighten. Enlighten is not mandatory, but it gives you an extra throw or 2 of mana before you run out, which is more comfortable in no regen maps. I'm just using a level 2 Enlighten, and when it hits level 3, I'll probably Vaal it and sell it and just get another level 2 one. Next up, you'll be using a Cast When Damage Taken setup, of course. I use Cast When Damage Taken at level 4, with a Mortal Call at level 6, Vortex at level 7 to chill enemies, and Conductivity at level 7. You can change Cast When Damage Taken gems if you have another setup you prefer. In your 3-link weapons, you'll have Whirling Blades, Fortify and faster attacks, and an Orb of Storms setup with Curse on Hit and Conductivity. This is used for cursing bosses primarily. You'll notice that this build is non-crit. I investigated going crit using the new Esh Amulet Choir of the Storm, but in the end, the extra investment was simply not worth it. You get just as much damage and more survivability investing those passives and gear slots into intelligence and regular damage scaling. Besides, this build already shreds everything even without crit, and it's expensive enough without trying to get crit jewelry as well. And that's pretty much it. This is a really fun and strong build. I've had a great time with it. It's probably up there in my top 5. It's not cheap. I spent around 10 exalts on my character, which is probably on the cheaper end of things because my jewelry is not very good. But about 7 exalts of that was actually my 6-link File Regalia. But for the money that I invested, I felt like this was one of the best return on investment builds that I've ever made. I've spent way more on builds that were way less fun and way less powerful. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below, and please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to catch my future Path of Exile content. That's it for now, I'm Ziggy D, and thanks for watching.